Normally, when a team wins a championship, you're not exactly thinking of the long-term future now, are you? They're the champions, of course they'll be here to stay for years to come. And while it's true that there's no greater sign of success than a title, historically it's been just short of a guarantee. Though far less common today, sports history is filled with plenty of teams that either moved or outright folded even after winning their league's top prize, and the WNBA is no exception. Which brings me to the subject of this video, where I'll be taking a look at the last WNBA team with a championship under its belt to ever fold. This is a brief history of the Sacramento Monarchs. It all started in 1997, the WNBA's first year of play. Sacramento was one of the charter teams and played in the Arco Arena, which was also used by their NBA counterpart, Sacramento Kings. They were owned by the Maloof family, who also owned the Kings. In their first year, they signed 1996 Olympic gold medalist Ruthie Bolton, among the league's best players almost immediately, as Bolton scored the second most points in the league that year, third most field goals made, and second in points per game. Also, Latasha Byers led the W in offensive rebounds. The first coach for the Monarchs was Mary Murphy, who previously led the Wisconsin Badgers to their first ever NCAA tournament appearance. But any success in the W would have to wait. A massive losing streak in the middle of the season led to the team firing her in favor of Heidi Vanderveer, a former assistant coach at Tennessee, serving under the legendary Pat Summitt. Despite this and the obvious talents of the rest of the team, the Monarchs would miss the playoffs with a 10-18 record. 1998 would be even less kind to them. They went 8 for 22, had 4, 5, and 6 game losing streaks, and only once did they win 2 games in a row. Alongside the Utah Stars, they were the worst team in the league. But things were looking up. Second overall draft pick Ticha Penicheiro led the league in assists, and Latasha Byers once again led in offensive rebounds. 1999 was the Monarchs' real first taste of success, now coached by Sonny Allen. With the second overall pick in the draft again, they chose Olympic gold medalist Yolanda Griffith, who helped the team go 19-13. Win streaks were far easier to come by, including a 5-game streak late in the season. Though they suffered 3 losses to end the season, they still made the playoffs, losing to the Los Angeles Sparks. Despite the playoff loss, Griffith brought home plenty of hardware for the Monarchs to be proud of, including League MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Newcomer of the Year. She would lead the WNBA in total rebounds, rebounds per game, steals per game, and free throw attempts. Ticha Penicheiro would once again lead the W in assists. 2000 saw more of the same during the regular season. Going 20-11, they made the playoffs, and up until this point, the first round was a single elimination game. But in the new millennium, it was all best of 3. Unfortunately, the Houston Comets were still dominating the league, and they swept the Monarchs 2 games to none en route to winning their 4th and final championship. Griffith still led the W in offensive rebounds, and Penicheiro was still the assist leader, so Sacramento still had that going for them. Yeah, get used to those 2 leading the league in those categories. 2001 would be even better, this time under new head coach Maura McHugh, and now games are starting to be played on local television, with KMAX picking up select games. The usual suspects dominated in assists and rebounds, and the Monarchs made the playoffs once more, this time winning in the first round, sweeping the Utah Stars 2-0. Though they would get 1 win over LA in the second round, that's all they would get. They'd lost 2 games to 1. 2002 was a tale of 2 seasons of sorts. They had their worst losing streak in team history to start the season, winning only 2 games in the first half. After some back and forth in mid-July, winning all but 2 games in their final 12, it was a hell of a comeback, but not enough to secure a playoff spot, missing for the first time in 4 years. This was also the first time since being drafted that Yolanda Griffith didn't lead the WNBA in any category, though Penicheiro still did lead in assists. It was also this season that Edna Campbell was diagnosed with breast cancer. She took a lot of time off to receive treatment and managed to return late in the season and continue well into the next. In the process, she became something of a symbol to breast cancer survivors. The next year, she was named the WNBA's official spokesman for their partnership with the Susan G. Komen Foundation. She ended up winning the League Sportsmanship Award, the first of only 2 Sacramento Monarchs to win it. Starting in the 2003 season, Sacramento went 3-7, including a 4-game losing streak in June. They evened out a little bit later on, though it would cost Maura McHugh her head coaching job. Assistant coach John Wisenant would take over, a move that would be crucial to this team later on. 2 4-game win streaks and a 3-game streak propelled them to the playoffs, where they beat the Houston Comets 2 games to 1 to win the first round. But once again, the Sparks would keep them from getting any further, winning round 2 in 3 games. The next year would be the first without the Cleveland Rockers. For For their story, check out my previous history when this one's over. The link will be in the description. In the dispersal draft, the Monarchs selected Jennifer Butler, though she wouldn't play a game in Sacktown. Rebecca Brunson, however, picked 10th overall by the Monarchs, would definitely secure a place in this team's history. The season started off rough, once again going 3-7, but things picked up thanks in no small part to Yolanda Griffith's league-leading steals and, of course, Rebecca Brunson's remarkable play as a rookie. Despite the 3-game losing streak late in the season, they clinched a playoff spot, the last one in the West. The Monarchs beat the Sparks in Game 1 of the first playoff round at home, lost Game 2 in LA, and won the series clincher once again at Staples Center, avenging their loss from last year's playoffs. Against Seattle, however, they lost in 3 games. The 2005 season started with a flurry of transactions. Tangela Smith and a second-round draft pick were traded to the Charlotte Sting in exchange for Nicole Powell, a big name for Stanford fans, Olympia Scott Richardson, Naismith Player of the Year finalist, and Aaron Bescher, 3-time Big Ten Player of the Year. After signing Miao Ligier and Sue Feifei to bench roles, the Monarchs traded Chantel Anderson to San Antonio for a 2006 draft pick. During the 05 pick, however, the Monarchs drafted point guard Kristen Haney from Michigan State and Chelsea Newton from Rutgers. However, the Monarchs did have to make the difficult decision to waive longtime member Ruthie Bolton. Initially re-signed as a free agent, she didn't make the team out of training camp. But she wouldn't necessarily leave the team. Though her on-court career was over, the front office gladly took her in to work in the public relations department. Sacramento went 25-9, easily their best regular season record in team history. The only reason they weren't the top team in the league was because the Connecticut Sun had one more win. Still, the Monarchs easily topped the Western Conference standings. For the first time, they were conference champions. In the playoffs, they swept the Sparks 2-0, then the Comets also 2-0. In fact, they wouldn't lose a playoff game until Game 2 of the finals, which was in overtime, and that would be their only playoff loss. On September 20th, 2005, the Sacramento Monarchs defeated the Connecticut Sun 3-1 to win the WNBA championship, with 15,002 fans celebrating with them at Arco Arena. Yolanda Griffith won Finals MVP, Nicole Powell was named the league's most improved player, Chelsea Newton was named to the All-Rookie team, and John Wisenant won Coach of the Year. To this day, it remains the only championship ever won by a Sacramento-based sports team. Eager to defend their title, the 2006 season started with losing Newton in the expansion draft to the Chicago Sky. But they still went 21-13 and took second in the Western Conference. And just like the previous year, they were undefeated in the first 2 rounds, claiming their second straight conference title. And also like the last year, it wasn't until Game 2 of the finals that they would lose a game, 73-63 to the Detroit Shock. Sacramento would win Game 3, but Detroit would take the next 2 to win their second WNBA title in front of 19,000 strong at the Joe Louis Arena. Arguably the most electric atmosphere for a WNBA Finals of all time. John Wisenant would no longer be coaching the Monarchs from here on out, though he would remain as general manager. He hired Jenny Buchek to fill the role. She was the Seattle Storm's assistant coach when they won the 2004 championship, and as a collegiate led the Virginia Cavaliers to 4 ACC titles and 3 Elite 8 appearances. A resume like that cannot be ignored. 2007 started off in the same way 2006 ended, a game with the Shock to open the season, which the Monarchs lost 68-75. Fortunately, the rest of the season wasn't so harsh. That is, at least until the playoffs. Against Becky Hammon and the San Antonio Stars, the Monarchs took Game 1, but only Game 1. Brunson would lead the league in offensive rebounds, and Kristen Haney led in three-point percentage, if nothing else. 2008 was a bit up and down for the Monarchs, the Western Conference being more competitive than ever. But they did sneak into the playoffs with the last seed in the West. And once again, they only managed 1 win in the first round against Becky Hammon and 10 of her closest friends. In 2009, their final year in the W was not the way they wanted to go out. They started the season 3-10, costing Jenny Buchek her head coaching job. John Wisenant stepped behind the bench once more, and he would go 9-12 for a total record of 12-22. Sacramento was the worst team in the league. At this time, the Malou family stepped away from operating the team. The league took over and tried to sell the team to ownership groups in either San Francisco or Oakland, but nothing materialized. Closure of the team was announced on December 8, 2009. The dispersal draft was held 5 days later, and with that, the Sacramento Monarchs were no more. To this day, they are the last WNBA team to ever fold after winning a title, and the last team to fold at all. But at least they won a title, And with an overall record of 224-200 and a playoff record of 24-19, I think it's safe to say that this was a successful franchise. In 2014, the new owners of the Kings, who previously tried to obtain the Monarchs in 2009, expressed interest in bringing them back, sharing the new Golden One Center. Despite support from Sacramento Mayor Kevin Johnson, himself a former NBA player, this never happened. The last Monarch active in the WNBA was Courtney Paris, whose last game was September 15, 2019, as a member of the Seattle Storm. With their loss to the LA Sparks that night, the last player active with the Monarchs played her last game. Today, she's an assistant coach for the Dallas Wings. Off the court, the legacy of the Monarchs continues with former head coach Jenny Buchek, now an assistant coach with the Indiana Pacers. In addition, Heidi Vanderveer is the head coach of the UC San Diego Tritons women's team. Kara Lawson is coaching the Duke Blue Devils. Rebecca Brunson is assistant coaching the Minnesota Lynx. And inaugural head coach Mary Murphy is an analyst for a variety of networks. So the ties to the Sacramento Monarchs aren't completely gone. The team had 4 Naismith Basketball Hall of Famers on their all-time roster. And although most WNBA teams have had their struggles with attendance, the Monarchs' all-time average was higher than the averages of all but one WNBA team from 2022. And there you go, a brief history of the Sacramento Monarchs. What do you think of this historic team? Were any of you watching this a fan of them, or do you have memories of your favorite team playing them? Tell me what you think in the comments, reminisce a little, and tell me if I missed something. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss the next one, not to mention my primary Atlanta Dream content during the regular season. I have a lot of fun doing those. And the next time I give another WNBA history lesson, I hope to see you then.